So it was just chaos. And all of a sudden, I realized I couldn't feel the water anymore. And I was watching myself drowning. So I was hovering above the water and I could see myself struggling in the water. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, that's not good. I shouldn't be able to see myself. That's weird.
No.
And I thought I was dying. At that point, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm drowning because I already left my body. I'm now watching myself drown. And then next thing I knew, I was standing on the beach.
A year ago, we opened the doors to one of New York's most haunted properties. Tonight, we're going back in with the woman who lives inside those walls. Welcome back to The Common Historian, where history meets the supernatural. I'm Jeremy, and each week we explore the haunting intersections between our past and the paranormal. Tonight, I'm joined by Heather Mattison, Mattson, owner of the Graestone Manor in Western New York, returning to the show as we mark 1 year of this podcast. Heather was one of my very first guests in the very beginning of this. And tonight we're going to catch up on things that are happening at the manor. And we're going to go somewhere we didn't really go the last time. We're going to try to explore her gifts as a medium. So grab your favorite beverage, dim the lights, and prepare to journey into the world where history refuses to stay buried. Welcome back, Heather. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Oh, doing good. I
Good.
can't believe it's been almost a year. I think your episode actually was, I think, the end of August last time, and I was very fascinated by the Greystone, and
Mhm.
I've been kind of following it since then. But has there been any major new things coming up this past year?
I would say in the past year, we did have a little bit more discovered here on the property as far as the historians go. The ones who are doing some of the research into the Erie Canal workers who were here, that they found the graves on the property. They believe that they found a Native American burial mound as well out back. They did go back there. They were using dowsing rods, but then they were back there trying to get the size of it. And they think it's about an acre in circumference. It's really big for a burial mound. And it's pretty tall, many layers. So they think this is one of the biggest ones I've ever found.
Oh, wow.
Directly behind the house, it's in the field. Like if you're standing on the back porch of the house, you're looking right at it.
Oh, that's very nice. And yeah, I know that I've seen you live on Facebook a few times. I saw that I think one night I remember there was some kind of disc in the sky or lights in the sky that you were
Oh,
showing.
yes.
Crazy.
We do get these strange, they're like balls of light that hover above the trees. We're not really sure what all that was going on. That was above the lake. We don't know if it was a combination of that. Somebody said that someone was shooting off flares, but it doesn't really make sense with where we are that we would be able to see that because it's way up into the middle of the lake over on the Canadian side. I don't know if
Yeah.
we would have seen them from they look more like they're hovering above the tree line. But then we get them also in east and west directions too, where neither of those directions, the lake to us is directly north. So
Oh,
it doesn't really explain why we see those too then. And it's the same looking things. They almost look like an orange glow. They almost look like flame and they're hovering. There's something called the will of the wisp that people experience in Ireland and other countries where they have these balls of light that skim across ponds. They believe it might be like swamp gas that ignites and turns into these balls of fire. And that is what we're seeing above the tree line though. So we did have someone out. We had someone come out, an investigator come out, I think about 3 or 4 years ago now, and he set up all kinds of cameras behind the house, and they are military grade cameras, and they have a pretty wide scope and range, and they go back. I think it was like 500 yards. So it was picking up these balls of light though, and he let it run all night long, so it was catching them all night long, continually filming. And then he said it was filming in infrared, so it was night vision. And then when he got the footage back, he looked at it and it was there was like a light beams like coming from these balls of light that were shining down onto the tops of trees that were casting this strange iridescent glow that you couldn't see with the naked eye. You could see it was picking up in the infrared, but the tops of trees are all glowing bright white and it was the size of about 3 football fields. So it was big. And they were coming from the ball of light that was hovering above the trees. So that was really wild. That was on the Facebook page, the Graystone Manor page. If you follow the page at all, he explains what you're looking at, what you're seeing. So it was actually pretty cool to find that. That was wild.
that is cool. And I
Mm.
know when you were alive there that I was watching that, and that they sure didn't look like flares. Um,
No, they were hovering too strangely in one spot, and then they would move from left or
movie.
right. Flares
Yes.
don't move. As far as I know, they go up and then they hover and they burn out. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty wild.
Um, this past year, have you had any major investigators come and, or do you have any events upcoming?
Yeah, we have a couple different things coming up. We did have someone come and reach out to us. His name is John. He calls himself the Rockman Johnson. He specializes in lifting stones, which is it's a European phenomena. It's an old, actually, it's like an ancient belief system where it was like a feats of strength thing. It's almost like strongman competition. And they would say that every farm, every, I guess, where you would have a work site, things like that, they would have this major stone that would be on the property, and they would have people try and lift it. If they could lift this stone, then they could work with them. It was almost like a rite of passage. And they would have different size stones, so you could lift different ones. And he said that every farm used to have these stones. And he was here and he found one back by the barns that he believes is one of these lifting stones. But the traditions go back to ancient Ireland, Scotland, England, Iceland, Sweden, and Australia. So they find these all over large plantations and things like that. Because it would have been like a 200-year-old or older. When people first started settling here, they're still using the lifting stones. It's like a funny rite of passage thing. So they did find one on the farm, and we had people coming out to lift those. We had a bunch of different groups come out, New England stone lifters, but they're also strongman competition or competitors. They do the throwing of the tabor, and they do the shot put and all the stuff for the strongman competitions. If you've ever seen those, that was pretty wild. So they came out. It's a 254-pound stone. It's a round stone. You could tell because they're shaped different than every other stone that the building's made out of. Everything else is chiseled and squared. This is not. This is a perfectly round stone. It was sitting right by the barns in the back.
Wow.
So those guys are coming in a couple weeks.
That's
Another group is coming out to lift that. We had a team come out from New England. They came out, but they had members coming in from Illinois, a couple of the states that were a part of this team, and they came out to lift it. So they're going to come out. So we have other people coming out to do that, which is pretty funny. And then other things going on. We do have a public ghost hunt coming up, and that's going to be on the 29th. That is going to be, what do I have my calendar in front of me? It's just one that our Greystone Paranormal team is hosting.
okay.
For that, you can go to www.graystonemanor.com. You can send us a message there, or you can send us an email to graystonemanor@gmail, and it's GRAE. It's a funny spelling. But you can text or call us too. Tickets are $40 each, but it's 7 to midnight. And then we have our team, they bring all their equipment with them as well. So we do a whole ghost hunt where we split people up into teams. Everybody gets to investigate, but then you get to investigate with professional equipment, or you can
Yeah.
investigate on your own. We split people up into groups. So we do all different kinds of experiments, and it's really fun. It's a really fun night.
Oh, it sounds it. This episode will actually be out on August 8th, so there'll be plenty of time for them to
Oh,
get
good.
tickets if anyone wants to join
Yeah.
that.
And this haunted rooms also, they're holding an event here as well. I think it's on I want to say the 22nd. And that's that Friday. They are also, those tickets are for sale. That's through hauntedrooms.com. You can go on there, and they come in and they host that event. It's the same thing. I think it's the same time frame, like a 7 to midnight. So a couple different chances if you want to come and investigate, especially with the team, with people who are bringing equipment. They show you how to use everything. You can use the equipment. So it's just a fun night. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, oh, I imagine. I did my first ghost hunt back in May. Never had done it before. Out to a Wildwood
Oh, yeah.
sanitarium,
Well, yeah.
which was that was fun for my first time ever really doing that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a great location.
Oh yeah, I loved it. It was
Mhm.
it was a great night. Hoping to do a few more of those. It
We
was a
did table
trek.
tipping there, which I would
What's
like to do
that?
here. We did table tipping. We've done that here before, where it's an old Victorian
Oh yeah.
thing people used to do. You'd sit around a table, everybody puts their fingertips on the table, and then you ask if the spirits can use your energy to move the table. You're not holding the table, you're just putting your fingertips on it. And then it'll start making the table. It can make it hover, it can lift, it can move rocking back and forth, it can do all kinds of stuff. It's
Oh
pretty cool.
wow. That
And,
is cool.
and technically nobody's pushing it, or
Yeah,
that's the theory. It's almost like a Ouija board where you are holding on to the planchette, but you're not moving it. Mhm.
yeah. But that's really cool.
Yes, that's something to do there for sure.
So has there been any of the rooms at the manor that have been more active than others recently, or?
Oh, let's say recently we've had more shadow phase. We've had some strange, more electrical phenomena going on in the last year. Weird things. We had a lightning strike. We're blaming it on the lightning because we're not really sure. We had a weird power surge. Although we did have
uh,
a bad storm that was back in December, and It fried out our furnace and we lost some appliances and things like that. It doesn't really make sense. It was like a strange power surge, but then we've had that happen again. And we had electricity
Oh,
back. It doesn't make sense. It like goes through the outlets and it's random outlets. So it's not like everything plugged in. It was just a few weird
random.
items like our floodlights outside. We had the furnace go. We had weird dehumidifier in the basement. Strange things. Didn't make sense. So that sort of happened. Then we had it again. So we had another weird this this weird power surge. But then we've had strange things. Like we had guests. I think it was 3 weeks ago now. I want to say 3 weeks ago, and they were leaving. They left in the morning, and we were in there's a little room off the kitchen that has that wall is the main parlor wall is behind the door. It's basically the wall to that room. So we were in that room. We have our own little TV room in there. But we all of a sudden heard what sounded like somebody walking around in that outside room. This would have been the main parlor, but our people they left about 2 hours earlier. So then we're thinking maybe they forgot something because we heard walking around, but then we heard talking. We heard a very distinct man and woman talking. My husband and I, we muted the TV. We were being real quiet. And we're like, are you hearing that? Because we could hear very clear people
Oh,
talking. And we're like, what the heck? So we open the door and we're looking around and we have a TV hanging in that main parlor, but we have a frame on it. It sort of disguises it as a TV. And it sounds weird, but we make it look like almost like an oil painting.
oh,
So
okay.
anyway, so it's just there with a frame on it. And we were noticing the talking was coming from the TV, but the TV wasn't on. TV was off. In fact,
Oh,
regular TVs, it has a little red light on the corner. If it's on, it's blue. If it's off, it's red. And it was
yeah.
off. It was red. But there's definitely the talking was coming from the TV, and we're like looking at it, going, "What in the world is what the heck?" So we grabbed the remote and we went to hit the power button just to see, and sure enough, it turned it on. And it's a smart TV, so it's when you turn it on, it has all the icons,
Yeah.
Netflix, Hulu, all that, Pluto and stuff. So it wasn't on a channel. No one had been watching it. The guests who stayed with us, no one watched the TV. No one, we hadn't used it in weeks. There's no reason for it to be on. And then we were like,
Yeah. Yeah.
we figured it must have been almost sounded like a news broadcast because it sounded like just people talking, like a man talking than a woman talking. But either way, it didn't make sense. And it was coming from the TV. So we still have no idea. Never did it again. No clue what's going
Oh,
on.
wow.
Why it did that. There's no reason for it to do this. And then we've had lights turn off and on by themselves, all kinds of weird stuff. So we've had a lot of electrical things happen.
That is strange. Yeah. And
Yeah,
the power surge doesn't make sense. Usually you lose everything if there's a power surge.
exactly right. I had that happen and I lived in Georgia for a long time. And we did have that. We had the house was struck by lightning. So I had been through that before. I know what that's like. And when you have a lightning strike, you could smell the electric burning. You could tell it had come through one of the outlets where the cable line had been almost like the outlet below it. So
Yeah.
so it makes sense. So it came in through the cable line. That's where the lightning struck. It turned out the house wasn't grounded. The cable company
Oh,
ground the cable line. They just ran it right from the pole into the house. So it was acting like a superconductor. So lightning hit the pole and zapped our house instead of going into the ground
oh.
like it was supposed to. So at least that made sense. We figured out why.
Yeah.
But this didn't make any sense. It was all random. Random parts of the
Oh,
house were zapped. Not all.
yeah. That's weird. Have you started planning for Halloween at the Graestone?
No, you know what?
Oh,
This season is sneaking up on me. This has been a crazy spring. We had a very cold, rainy, pretty awful spring. It took us a while to get into the summer mode to get everything sort of cleaned
yeah.
up summer because it was so wet and strange and rainy. And we did have a big event here in June with Adam Barry from Kindred Spirits. I helped them out on their show, Kindred Spirits, and then he's been here. They were here for an investigation on their show, I think about 5 years ago now, but then I helped them with some other episodes. But every year he comes out and we do this big festival, do a big art festival. We have authors speak, and then he does the celebrity ghost hunt. So it's like a
Yeah.
really, really fun day. We have food vendors and all kinds of stuff going on. So that was a
Oh,
really
that's
fun event. And that was back in June, but to me it feels like it was last week, but it was already over a month ago. And so Halloween, I know. Yeah, I don't even know what to think about Halloween this year. It's sneaking up on me fast.
it is
But
because it's already August and it's only a couple months away now.
yeah.
Speaking about Adam Berry, I was on in April at the Vermont Horror, Sci-Fi, and Fantasy Expo. Yeah,
Ah,
I actually was the host for the panel he was on for both days,
oh
so I got
gosh.
to meet him. He was great.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Oh my gosh. For that kind of thing, perfect for a panel. Oh my God. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
super fun. And but so that was a big event that we did. Halloween this year, I've got a we were just talking about that because we want to do some events. We know we had some people who were going to maybe stay Halloween night. I'm not sure what's going on now. They wanted to book the whole night. So it's already getting to be that point where people now have to make their minds up because
Yeah.
it's gonna go fast. We already have
Oh yeah.
already booked out.
Yeah. So I was, yeah, no, I just figured I'd ask 'cause it is a couple months away, and I know I'm already starting to think about because I was telling you that I went to one episode a week starting for August and September to my twice a week for that month because that's the biggest month of the
Mhm.
year usually.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to try to figure out who I want on
Yeah.
during Halloween.
Yeah. We might do a Halloween party slash ghost hunt, do something fun like that. We'll do it where
Yeah.
it's a combination. We might even have food and stuff like that. Then people want to ghost hunt, they want to dress up, they can. It would be really funny. Because you never know. Sometimes that stuff will trigger things in the house. Depending on what we've had all kinds of weird responses in the past. We always have Halloween parties here every year, but so we might do something like that. Do something fun.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I know we've talked a lot about the manor, but I did want to something that I had wanted to get through the last time we spoke, but I think we kind of focused mostly on the history of the manor and what was going, the hauntings. I wanted to kind of get into your gifts that you have. When did you first realize you had gifts?
So, but a lifelong thing. Always knew I was sensitive to things. I could always pick up on things. If I go into people's houses, I could feel in different rooms. I could tell things were going on. I would see things. I thought I would see people in different parts of a house or whatever. Had issues at my cousin's house when I was little kid. But they had a big old creepy farmhouse in upstate New York. And it was just weird. There were certain rooms I didn't want to go in. I just felt like there was somebody in there. I thought I kept seeing a woman in this upstairs. Turned out it would have been like the maids, almost like servants' quarters, because it was a little room off the kitchen, up the
Yeah.
staircase going up, and it was turned into my cousin's bedroom. So when we were
Oh,
little kids, that was her room. But it was like dark and weird and cramped and small and creepy. It was just bizarre. I'm like, what goes on in here? This feels weird. Anyway, so I knew I was always sensitive to stuff, but then my grandmother, she was sensitive, it runs in the family. She used to do tea leaf reading, things like that. And then when I was, I think, 21, I had an accident. So I had a drowning accident in California. I drowned on Huntington Beach. We were boogie boarding. It was a surf beach, and I was there with friends of mine. And I went out. I had a paddle board, and it was velcroed to my wrist, the smaller paddle board to
yeah.
boogie board in. And I got caught up in a wave. My friends had all left. They were sitting up on the beach, and I wanted to keep going in the water. But I'm a strong swimmer. I grew up with a pool, so I had no fear of the water. It was always
Yeah.
I'm used to this where we are in this area, Western New York. We just have the lakes where there's no waves. So I'm used to
Yeah.
the waves. I'm not used to surf beaches. Anyway, I was walking up to the shore. I was dragging the boogie board behind me, and a wave caught me from behind. It hit me. I didn't even see it. It was a wall. Hit me and pulled me into the undertow. So I was like caught up in this wave attached to the boogie board, which I was trying to get off my wrist while trying to get out of the water. But it was way too deep. I couldn't touch the bottom. I was trying to kick up to the surface, you know how you do that. So it was just chaos. And all of a sudden, I realized I couldn't feel the water anymore. And I was watching myself drowning. So I was hovering above the water and I could see myself struggling in the water. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, that's not good. I shouldn't be able to see myself. That's weird.
No.
And I thought I was dying at that point. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm drowning because I already left my body. I'm now watching myself drown. And then next thing I knew, I was standing on the beach, toe to toe with a guy dressed all in black, but he was wearing black shoes. I remember the shoes because it was so odd because they were like rounded toes, dress shoes. They almost looked like dress shoes, dress pants, black pants. And then I was touching toe to toe like this, standing with this guy, but he was not holding me up and he didn't pull me out of the water. And he was really tall because I'm 5'8" and my head was like, his shoulders were up here, up way above me. But I remember thinking, I was so confused at that point. I'm like, I remember saying to him, my friends are probably really worried about me. They probably wonder what happened to me because I'm looking around. What in the world? This guy is standing there. I'm looking around and it's August and it's Huntington Beach. There's people everywhere. It's just a busy beach day. And I remember there was a lady and a little girl sitting on a blanket directly to my right, like a foot away from me. And no one was looking at us. No one was asking, "Are you okay? What happened?" I had no water in my lungs. I thought I was, at that point, I thought I was dead because no one was
Oh,
looking at us or him or me or saying anything. Where'd you come from? And I'm also about 30 feet from the shoreline, standing on dry sand. And I'm like, why? How? What in the world? So I remember thinking, saying to him, I think my friends are probably worried about me. They probably wonder what happened to me. In my head, it felt like this had been going on for a long time, but it was probably
yes.
only a few minutes. So I ran over to where my friends were, and I'm like, wow, did you guys see what happened? Did you see what? And I was so confused. And they're like, what do you mean? And I said, didn't you see that? I was stuck in the water. I couldn't get out of the water. I think someone pulled me out. I said, and I go, it's a guy wearing all black. So we started scanning the beach. And Huntington Beach is a very deep beach. It's got like a path at the front where you can like go rollerblade and walk. It's like gotta be walking path, but then it's a very big, deep beach. And then there's the water. So there's a lot of sand area and it's covered with people. And we're like a scanning because then I'm thinking maybe it's somebody in a wetsuit. A black wetsuit is what I,
True, yeah.
in my
True.
head, I just saw it as for some reason a suit. Looking like for anybody dressed in either wetsuit, like a surfer, or somebody wearing a black dress suit because that's what I saw was like dress pants. Anyway, it was the weirdest thing. But anyway, after all that happened, all of a sudden I'm hearing things around people. I'm seeing people standing next to people. I'm starting to have all kinds of messages in my head. I'm starting to hear that person's going to die next week or they're really sick. They need to go see a doctor. I'm getting all these weird, like who, what is this? So I think what it did was it heightened whatever abilities I already had. This was almost like pouring gasoline on a fire. And then
Oh,
it freaked me out because it was too much. I remember flying home in the airplane and that was a trip because I'm picking up everybody's fear, everybody's anxiety, because there's nothing more anxious or anxiety riddled than an airplane because people are all
yeah.
panicky anyway. But it just felt bizarre. I'm like, this is so weird. I could see everybody or hear what they were thinking. Then I tried to mute it. So I tried to ignore it and try
Yeah.
to shove it down. So I wasn't, because it was like to the point where it was taking things over.
Sensory
And
overload.
yeah, because I was so confused. What am I getting? Why am I hearing all this? So I ignored it for a while and it faded away a little bit, but it would still be there. If I was focusing on somebody, all of a sudden I started to hear all the stuff about them. And then, so I ignored that for a while. And then about 4 years later, when I had my daughter, I had a visitation by a spirit before I knew I was pregnant who said, you're pregnant, you're going to have a girl, and told me all this stuff about her. And I could see this figure, and it was the oddest thing. I was asleep, but I was waking up. It wasn't a dream at all. There was this image, this face came. I know this is gonna sound really weird. It came at me from like dropped down from the ceiling almost. And it was reaching through this layer of this. It looked like milk or the white layer. I
Yeah.
believe that's the veil between our realm and the next realm. Because as he came through, he was bringing all these weird colors, and there were colors I saw when I was drowning. It was magentas, light blues, purples, and white, this crazy white. And I've tried to explain it to people, these colors don't exist. I've had
Yeah.
color wheels before. I'm trying to match the colors of what I was shown in both of those instances, and those colors don't exist. They're almost lit up from behind. They're like self-illuminating, but they're super bright, but they don't hurt your eyes. And the white color is probably the white light they talk about, but it was like this weird, it almost looked like viscous, like almost like milk, like a thick sort of stuff that they were coming through, talking me through. And now, since all that happened, they told me about that and they were right. I was pregnant. Turned out like a week later, I found out I was pregnant. And it was a girl. They started telling me all kinds of stuff about her. So it all came out to be true. So everything they told me about her was right, was correct. So then I started reaching out to them more. Okay, so what should I do now? Like when I would have to deal with things, just to test myself, just to
Yeah.
see what was I getting on this or that. And so there's a lot of weird stuff with her. I did write a book. I wrote 2 books. They're called Letters to Olivia because I do a lot of auto writing. And I have my guides write about all kinds of topics, everything from death to ESP to what are ghosts to astral projection to aliens, you name it, all different topics. So I just kept asking my guides, what's this about? What happens when this happens? And they would write it down. They would write an explanation. So I published it. There's 2 books with those, all that in there. But in that's why it was pretty interesting because my daughter, when she was 2, started telling me all about her past life and how she died, and she told me all this crazy stuff, and she had just turned 2, and she could speak in complete sentences. It was the weirdest thing ever, and I started taking notes of things she would tell me because I figured I could maybe find her. This is a long time ago now, really before the internet was a big deal.
Yeah.
But she told me her name, gave me her phone number, would tell me all about, and she would talk to me like it was present day, almost like she had just left that life and or it was like the
Oh,
neighbors. Or she talked about like it's actually going on at the same time. So all that was going on and questioning her, it was just the weirdest thing. It went on for about 6 months and she would tell me all kinds of stuff, like how she died, who her grandmother was, names, all kinds of stuff. And then at about 6 months, I was giving her a bath, and I used to like to ask her questions then because it gets captive audience. I'm giving her a bath, so she has to focus on me. Then I would start asking her, "Hey, do you remember? Did you have any pets?" I would ask her questions about her past life. She all of a sudden she goes, "I'm not allowed to talk about that anymore." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "They told me I'm not allowed to talk about that anymore. I'm not supposed to be remembering this stuff, and I'm not allowed to talk about it anymore. I'll get in trouble if I keep talking about it." She said, and I said, "They said I can't." And I said, "Who's they? What do you mean they?" And she got really pissed off. And she's like, "I'm not allowed to talk about it anymore." And then she wouldn't talk about it anymore. So after that, she refused. She would never said another word, which is
wow.
absolutely bizarre. She told me she died in a car accident. She tried to fix the car she was in, and she explained all about the accident, how she hit a tree. That's how she died. And I have a son who's 2 years older than her. He never did any of that kind of stuff, but she did. But when he was 16, I taught him how to drive. Right? And I'm not a very good driver, but I taught him how to drive. I'm very proud. He got his license first try, no problem. But he was doing the normal things that kids do when you teach him how to drive. He was like nervous driving, that kind of stuff. When it came to her turn to drive, no, I remembered, obviously she died in a car accident. So I knew that about her. So I wondered if she'd be funny about driving. I wondered if she would remember any of that now. So 16 years old, take her out to go driving. We go to the church. We go to the church parking lot. And I'm like, okay, you just got to get a feel for the car. I just want you to make some circles. It was a day, nobody was there. The church was empty parking lot. I'm like, we're going to just, you got to get a feel for the car, like how it brakes. And she gets behind the wheel. She goes, "This is so weird." She goes, "I feel like I already know how to drive." And I'm ahead. I'm thinking, yeah, you know how to drive because you died in the car accident. But I didn't say anything. And she's driving. And I go, "No, you got to stay in the parking lot. I don't want you on the road." We're in the suburbs. So it's a very congested, busy suburb. Kids on bikes. There's houses everywhere. There's cars everywhere. You know how that is. It's a busy suburban neighborhood. And I said, "No, no, you got to stay. Just stay in the parking lot. We're just going to drive around here for a little bit." She goes, "No, I really feel like I know how to drive." And I'm like, damn it. So then she goes and pulls out of the parking lot. It starts driving through the neighborhood. Now I'm panicking because I'm like, she's never been behind the wheel of a car before. Me. And
Yeah.
she's perfectly driving. Come to a stop, sign, drive perfectly. She goes, "This is so weird." She goes, "I feel like I know how to drive. Isn't that strange? I wonder why." And then I said, and then I told her the whole thing. She goes, "I never told her before because I didn't want her to feel weird or
Yeah.
like freak or like
Mm.
a weirdo or anything." But instead she's like, "That's the coolest thing I ever heard." So she goes, "Where's your notes?" So when I got home, I showed her all the notes, everything I written down. She started Googling everything, started looking up online, and she found the phone number she gave me is TR3405, 2 letters and 4 numbers. And the only 2 cities that had those letters and the 4 digits were Denver and Atlanta. And she was born in Atlanta. So that's super
Mm.
weird. And then we found some other information. She was like finding things that she had told me was finding. We couldn't find the accident report, but we did find out
Yeah.
one of her stuff. But it's just so strange. So it makes you
The-
wonder. But anyway, so then I started looking into past lives. I was very fascinated with that because she told me so many things that there's just no way. It's just
Yeah.
mundane, everyday, boring stuff that you do. But she would just talk about, "Oh, yeah, my favorite food is fried chicken. And my grandma Brina used to make it for me all the time." And blah, 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 blah. She'd talk about all this crazy stuff. She kept demanding weird foods. Like she wanted vanilla ice cream and maple syrup. Like she was like weird stuff. She's like, "Oh, I love it. It's my favorite thing. I used to eat that all the time." And she would ask for odd things that she never. So it was just really true. So anyway, started opening up for me. That's when I started doing readings for other people, just because I had friends. My sister-in-law, she wanted me to test her out. She's like, "What are you getting on me?" And then she would bring her friends. "What do you get on my friends?" And The people I didn't know. I wanted to try this out on people I didn't know. It's different with
Yeah.
somebody because you know what they're about, or you think you'd know what they would be as far as where they're coming from, that kind of stuff. So that's when I started just doing that, experimenting with people. And it was crazy because the stuff that was coming through was like, yep, that happened too. And yes, this is happening. And they're like, okay, because they say you're going to do this. And yep, we already have plans for that. And I'm like, okay, they say it's going to work out. So it was just really funny. So it snowballed from there.
That's
Yeah.
that's a fascinating origin story and how it progressed.
Oh,
So
yeah.
is it mostly you see people, or is it more impressions or voices? Is it or a mixture?
Clear audience. So I hear them talk first. They always told me, when I say they, spirit guides, my angels, whoever's guiding me, helping me out, they'll always let me know ahead of time. They'll give me a little bit of a heads up. And they say that they'll do that. They said just basically everybody, but they said if you could see what was actually around you, you'd freak out. And this is,
Oh,
and because you don't, it's not just you. You have your spirit guide with you always. There's always
yeah,
someone else with you. You're never by yourself. And then they said, then there's healing angels that will come and go. You'll have spirit family that sort of hang around or be in there in key moments of your life. You'll have people come and go and visit. So they said it's crazy. And if you go to places like a hospital or somewhere where there's been like lots of deaths, you're going to see all kinds of stuff, depending on where you travel to, or go to Gettysburg or somewhere. So, anyways, so I hear first clarity, but then I'll ask them to show me. So it's almost like your mind eye view, but sometimes I see full body apparitions too. And I see shadows, I see shadow people, all kinds of stuff. You can show me. And when I say show me, I'll ask them, okay, show yourself to me so I can just describe you to the person
yeah.
I'm reading. And I've had people come in with like holding leashes of two dogs, like two big brown dogs, and be like, let her know I've got the dogs. And they'll say things like that. So I'll put all that in my notes because they auto write. So when you do a reading, I'll write down what they're saying to me, what they're showing me. So I'll say, okay, they say they have your dogs. Did you lose two larger brown dogs, like labs, but a little bit bigger? And they're like, yes, we just had them put down. The second one was put down. So funny stuff like that. They'll show me all kinds of weird things like that. So it's a
Oh,
combination of
wow.
things. And then I do psychometry as well, which is where you hold an item and then you get information from it. So if I do seances, I'll ask people to bring items that belong to family members or people they want to communicate with. Because then I can hold on to that item and then I'll start to see things around that item. It's almost like a key to draw them in so I can then talk
Yeah.
and explain what they want
And
to
it's
talk about.
like a trigger item or some trigger object or
Yeah,
something to
sort
that
of.
effect.
I had that happen we did a seance and I had people come in. It was a family. It was like two adult couples, and then they brought a 20-year-old son with them. And each person had, excuse me, one had the photograph of their mother, and somebody had the sailor hat from their grandfather, things like that. So items that would have belonged to the people for the seance. And then when it was time for the younger guy to bring his item up, he handed me a ring. And I go, okay, because I always ask, who does it belong to? I just want the first name, but then I'm going to tell you what they're talking about. And he goes, I can't tell you the name, but you know who it is. And I'm like, I know who it is because these people are from North Carolina. They're not from around here, me at all. He goes, yes, you know who it is, but I can't tell you who it is. So I'm holding it. I'm like, huh. And I started getting, of all things, Elizabeth Taylor. I don't know why, but it was like 50s era Elizabeth Taylor. And I'm like, all right, they're giving me an E, a strong E. And they're saying like Elizabeth Taylor, but it's not Elizabeth Taylor. But for some reason, they're showing me that era, 1950s. And then I'm holding it. All of a sudden, I go, oh my God, I started hearing Elvis Presley music. And I go, and did this belong to Elvis Presley? Is this Elvis's ring? And the kids, like, they're like, yes, they were all part of the Memphis Mafia. They were his friends. The people who were at the table, they found him. They actually have his Bible from next to his
Oh,
bedstand. And I started telling them, I, it, I don't know anything about Elvis. I'm not an Elvis. I like Elvis, but I'm not a fan or anything. And all of a sudden I just got really sad. And I go, and there's something really weird with this. I said, it feels like I feel very depressed with this ring. He's very sad. I said, it almost feels like he doesn't understand why he was famous and why no one else was. He goes, that's so weird you're saying that. He's going, we have his Bible. And he would highlight Bible passages. And in the Bible, he highlighted, why are my hands full of gold while everyone else around me is poor? Like, why do I have money and no one else in it? He really struggled with that. It messed him up. He couldn't get around that. Like, why am I so famous? Doesn't make sense. And they said, yeah, the reason they have the ring is because after one of the shows, then they showed me, I have the ring. There's pictures of me wearing the ring, which is great. But there's pictures of Elvis wearing the ring in concert. He's wearing holding the microphone, and you can see the ring. And it was a red ruby and gold. And after one of the shows, they were sitting around talking after the show, and he asked the one guy that he was talking to, "What's your birth month?" And the guy said, "I don't know if it's February, whatever the ruby is." He goes, "Oh," he goes, "Here, you should take this ring." He's going, "This is your birthstone." So he took it off his finger and gave it to him. That's why he has the ring.
Oh,
So he was
well,
always doing that kind of stuff. He was always like giving people stuff. He was like, giving things away all the time because he had this weird guilt complex, this strange thing. But anyway, but that was one of the weird ones. But that kind of stuff will happen. But that's a good example of like when I hold an item, all of a sudden they'll just start one thing
start
after
pouring in.
another, and after another, start explaining about that item.
I sometimes feel that I might be a little sensitive at times. I've seen full body apparitions at the haunted house I used to live in. Right before our last interview, I saw a shadow figure up in my bathroom. And remember, I think I mentioned that to you, and you said, "Oh, it's probably them checking on you." I haven't seen the shadow figure since, but I've seen that. I had an incident in New Orleans after my tour I went on. I was going to go and kind of go around and walk around the French Quarter, and I just got this really bad feeling. My whole chest was really tight, and I just had a feeling like I need to go back. I need to go to my hotel. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
walking around. I felt unsafe, but there was no reason to feel unsafe. It was very strange. I've had other instances where I get these feelings out of the blue and they completely change what I'm planning to do.
It sounds that's good though, because it sounds like you're listening to your intuition. You're listening to your basically your spirit guide. Somebody was
Yeah,
warning you, something was weird, or they felt something was off, maybe, and they wanted you to then
yeah.
to avoid whatever was going to be happening there. But at least you pay attention. A lot of people ignore it. They're like, "I'm fine. I'll keep going." And then God forbid something weird happens.
I debated, but I
Yeah.
just had it was like a compelling feeling that I just needed to call the Uber and go back to the hotel. And that's
Hmm.
what I ended up doing.
Wow. And no big robberies or anything weird that
No, nothing,
that's
nothing.
strange.
And it was still early for New Orleans. It was like 10 o'clock, 9:30,
What?
10 o'clock. It wasn't overly late for but I don't know. It was just strange. I've had a few other times when that's been weird, but I've seen multiple full-bodied apparitions in the past and shadow figures. I've seen those. I don't know if they draw to me or what, but I do see them
Mhm.
from time to time.
Did you ever have a near death experience? Did you ever have anything
No,
happen health wise or any close calls or anything weird? Because sometimes
not that I know of.
there are things for people.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
something I don't know. I've never really tried to do it. It just comes, it's just random. And it's not every day either. It's just sometimes it
Mhm.
happens.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Like they said, everybody's got gifts. Everybody's got a little bit of something going on. The trick is to pay attention,
uh,
to make a match. Oh, wait, last time I felt like that, this happened. I should probably pay attention now. You know what I mean? You know, so you're getting the right
uh,
messages. Mm.
yeah. Now, living at the Graestone Manor, has it shaped your abilities over time? Has it changed the way that you look at things or use your abilities?
It is interesting because it's multifaceted here. There's so many weird things going on between the different histories going on all the way back to the Erie Canal workers and all of that happening, going into Underground Railroad to the racetrack to the political careers that were going on here. There's a lot of things that happened here. War of 1812. So you have a lot of different layers of history. And it's funny to be here because it's quiet. We're in the country. So I can focus. So if I'm hearing things or seeing things, there's not a lot of distraction. When you're in the city or you live in the suburbs, you got neighbors, you got dogs barking, you got things here and there. So you're always being distracted. Here,
Yeah,
that's the one nice thing about being here. I can actually focus. So if I'm as quiet as it could be, so there's not a lot of weird things outside that draw my attention away. So yeah, I think for that instance alone, and then it's been very interesting to investigate here. That's why we do. We try and do one a month. Sometimes we don't. It doesn't. They hate to have constant, but I think they like the company
yeah,
because they were a very social group of people with the Underground Railroad stuff, and but then also because they were political and they ran the Black Swiss shop here. So they had a lot of things with the racetrack where they had a lot of people coming in, lots of groups of people. So they're constantly interacting with people. It wasn't like it was a own private farm. No one was here. It was a constant mishmash of all kinds of stuff happening all the time.
Yeah, a little more bustling than it is now.
Then exactly, especially back then, would have been very busy. Yeah.
So I know that you mentioned that sometimes you could pick up on a living person's energy. Is there a difference between picking up on that energy and someone that's no longer a spirit energy?
I think your personality, your spirit stays the same. So when you reincarnate in, it's going to just be put into different body forms for your different reincarnations. So if someone's coming through in spirit, there's a difference between ghosts and spirits. So I'll say that when someone is here for a reading, I'll tell them who's around them in spirit, which is basically someone who's crossed over properly. They can now come and visit you in spirit, and they're usually pretty vibrant and strong. They're gonna come. They're gonna come across to me as their full personality. So I'm going to be able to pick up, oh, this person's really funny. They like tell a lot of jokes, or they're very serious, or they're very stern, or they're very. So I can tell you just from them coming forward, not me focusing on them for a minute, I can tell their personalities a little bit. Ghosts are a little bit different because they're earthbound. So they haven't really crossed over properly. So a lot of times they're still suffering a little bit, or they're confused. You'll
Okay.
get confusing stuff. That's where it's a little bit different when you go to a haunted location. Say it's a prison or something where you've had probably multiple deaths, but then unpleasant or not quite right, or for whatever reason they didn't cross over properly and they're earthbound. So those spirits, you'll get a different kind of feeling. And a lot of times, but I was just saying it's a lot of the electrical, the differences for the personality things that they're dealing with when it's a ghost. I'll pick up on how they died. So that'll be a little bit different. It seems a little more, I guess, not just earthbound, but more physical reaction. Because I'll feel if they were dizzy or if they had a heart attack or cancer where it was like a long drawn out illness. I'll feel sickly and all of a sudden real weak. And I'll tell you, okay, I think that this is how they died. Or they died with this issue going on. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't realize the difference between, I should, but the ghost spirit.
Yeah.
That
Friend.
was
Yeah.
fascinating. I didn't,
And then the spirits are nice because they can come and go and visit whenever they want. So those people are the nice ones where if you're having a seance or something like that, or even doing a reading, I'll ask who's around you in spirit, and then they'll jump in. And they can come in because they know I'm asking about them.
yeah,
So they'll jump in and they're usually more clear headed. They feel better. Even though they've died, they're now freed of their body. Because what people die from is physical ailments. But once your spirit is free, you're no longer hauling that body around that may be ill or
yeah,
whatever's wrong with it. You know what I'm saying? Then it's just your spirit. So you're not worried about the physical part of not feeling well. And so they're usually much more open.
yeah, I would imagine. Now, have you ever picked up on something at the manor that you couldn't verify historically, but later found out was true?
Yes, the a couple weird things. I kept getting, so I didn't know anything about Curtis Root or Melissa Root or any of the Root family, which are the ones who had the race horses and all that. I kept hearing horses outside galloping, running. I kept hearing that as when I would go outside at night, especially by the barns, I would hear it sounded like running horses. I had no idea that they had a racetrack there. I didn't know really any of that till about 6 months after we moved in. And then the first person, I think the day after we moved in, Curtis Root walked right up to me and introduced himself. So I live here. He was talking about how he and his wife were here and all that kind of stuff. And then it is pretty cool. It's the way he presented himself. I couldn't get his whole career and everything, but I could tell he was some sort of professional. Ends up he was a politician, but ran all these businesses, did all the racetrack and all that. So that was a big one. And then another one, I got this guy in the basement who said he was running a speakeasy. He was not a nice guy. He was a little heavy set and he was wearing green and yellow plaid vest with a top coat and like greens. And he had this weird flat bowler hat sort of thing on. He looked like late 1800s, early 1900s, like 1910, but he was in charge. He seemed to be the one running things, money wise or whatever. But I was getting speaky, something weird was going on. And then come to find out that the Roots were rum runners, that they were rum runners. We found newspaper articles of them being pulled over on the canal with barges with booze and everything in there. So they got in trouble. So they were rum runners or they were doing something illegal with alcohol because they kept smelling alcohol too, kept smelling whiskey, strong alcohol in the basement. But that man was down there. So I don't know if that's where they hid things. Maybe his
Oh, maybe.
stuff down there, and I was in his space because I came in one corner of the basement, and there he was. He was standing there, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, we just moved in. Who are you?"
Yeah, I think I remember from the last time you were telling about going down the steps and getting grabbed,
Yeah,
I believe,
yeah.
if I remember
It
correctly.
feels like, yeah, it felt like someone was trying to. It was an open staircase, so it felt like someone was trying to grab your ankles as you walked, almost like your feet were being pulled back. Or oh my gosh, it was a weird. I put risers on there to stop it, but it was weird. It almost felt like your foot was stuck for a second, and then it would go. I'm like, what in the world? So somebody was definitely messing with you. The basement's a very active area.
Do you think it was that guy that you saw in the basement when you first moved in?
It
You
might
think it's
be.
that guy?
It could be. We found out that I only found this out maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, but then so we were told that there's an older lady who lived here from 1920 thousand, and she was almost 100. Her name's Mina, and she had this farmhand named Larry who lived here. They said it was her boyfriend. I don't know what was going on. This guy was, but he didn't live in the house. He lived out in the barn. And one day in the 1970s, at this point, she was going blind. She had glaucoma. She couldn't see. She was having trouble. And then one day, this guy, Larry, disappeared. They couldn't find him. She couldn't find him. And so she called neighbors and she called family to come and try and find him, heavy drinker. And he was causing all kinds of trouble. So they would have to bail him out of jail, bring him back to the house, the family, because they came here for a big seance. And they told me all this stuff about this guy, what he was like. So he was always causing trouble. But then one day she couldn't find him. Neighbors just told me this couple, maybe a year and a half ago. They said, yeah, they found that guy in your basement. He was in the bulkhead. So there's big stone stairs that come down to the basement from outside. If you're coming in from the barns, you go through the bulkhead to get in the basement. We don't know how long he was in there for, probably a couple days, but that's where he ended up either falling down the stairs or having a heart attack or something, but he died in that stairwell. And that's sort
Oh,
of kitty corner from where the open stairs are, where it feels like people are grabbing your feet. I think it might be him as well. I think it might be this
oh,
Larry guy, because when he's around, people said that they'll all of a sudden feel really drunk.
mm,
They'll be in the basement and feel woozy or wobbly, like they can't get to their balance. Almost feels like they've been drinking, but they haven't been. And I think when he's around, he causes that effect on people. Yeah.
wow. Now, do you use your gifts differently as the owner and caretaker of a haunted property than you would as a guest medium somewhere else? Do you use it any differently or
I think when it comes to when I worked with the Kindred Spheres people, they had me help them out in a couple different cases. And that was always really funny because I would just tell them, either the producers, to don't tell me where I'm going. I don't want to know where I'm going because I don't want to research anything or be accused of researching or anything.
yeah,
But I would just say, send the address to my husband, right? Let him know where we're going. And I would just ask him, do I need to bring like a sweater? What should I bring? That's a driving distance. I don't want to know where I'm going though. But the only thing I do want is a picture of the location where it doesn't have to be. I don't want the front where it would say the name of the place, just like maybe the front door or like windows or something where it's nondescript, basically. You wouldn't really know where you were going. So they did that. They would just send me like a random picture and be like, okay, because I like that to focus on. It's almost like I need a focal point because once I'm focusing on that picture, then I start taking notes. I'll ask my guides, what's going on in this location? What's happening? Can you tell me? And then they start writing all the stuff down. Oh yeah, man died here. This is happening, blah, blah, blah. So they write all this stuff. And then I bring it to the location. I bring my notes. And then
oh,
once I get there, then I ask them, okay, what do you want me to focus on? And then I'll say, I'll check my notes because I know I wrote a few things down notes. So it was pretty cool. My guides wrote down all kinds of funny stuff there's a museum in Palmyra, New York. And they did write
oh, yeah.
about the doctor's bag that someone had just donated, and that was all in my notes. It said a doctor's bag was donated, and the guy was not very nice. Like he was very dark, and there's less negativity coming from this doctor's bag. Makes people not feel well. But the doctor was also involved in like some creepy, weird experiments. Also like abortion stuff, but weird, but dark. It was not good. There's some weird,
Yeah.
dark stuff going on there with this guy. And anyway, so when we got to the museum, there's actually a medical. I had no idea. There's a room with all old medical equipment in it. And I said, oh, they wrote about this. I said, if there's a doctor's bag in here, they said it's coming from that because they said there's tools that were used on people for some sort of sick experiments and weird stuff because this stuff holds energy. It's a psychometry thing. You hold the item and oof, you could pick up whatever was going on with that. So that was pretty cool. So that was one of the weird ones, but that's what I do for a location. So if I go to a location, I like to sit down and take notes first. I went to the Sheboygan Asylum, and that I didn't take notes first, but I went there to help out a team as a guest investigator because they're doing a Paracon, and they asked me to
Yeah.
help be the guest psychic with these two other investigators, and they broke up into teams. And I said, sure. So I sat in the hallway with my paper and I started, who's here? Who wants to talk to me? And then I would have them write things down. And then I would find some of the guides, the people who were helping with the investigation. But okay, does this make any sense? They told me this guy's name is Mike. He pushes people down the stairs, but he thinks it's funny. He'll run up on people, even in the hallway, and make you trip. He'll go forward. He likes to push on you when you're walking. And they said, yes, there's a guy who does it. So it was really cool to get the validation because I know what they're
Wow,
showing, what they're telling me, and I'll take notes. So that's how I do it. It's a little bit differently when I go to a location. I like to take a lot of notes.
that's really cool. I think we're coming upon a hour here.
Wow, fast.
It went very fast. One last question. Where can people follow you, book a room at the manor, or get involved with any of
Mhm.
your, I know you plugged it a little bit earlier, but plug
Sure.
away again.
I would say the easiest way probably is just to go to the website. It's www.graestonemanor.com. Nice and easy. It's Grae. It's the Scottish spelling though. So it's Graestone, Graestone, manor.com. That has everything. If you go onto the menu at the top, pull down menu, all the links are there for my books, for readings with me, for all my psychic stuff as well. So it has everything from how to book the rooms, everything else gives you history too. It'll give you there's photos and all kinds of stuff in there. That's probably your best bet. You can go on there. And then also I do have Facebook pages for it's under Heather Reese Mattison. My books are under Heather Reese Mattison, Rease. Before I remarried, my name was Reese. So the name was kept with Mattison. Otherwise, because it gets confusing. That way you can find the one book from the other books. But anyway, so that's all on there too. So Heather East Madison page or Heather Madison page on Facebook, and then the Greystone Manor pages as well. And that's all Instagram, TikTok. I'm all over the place. So you can find me on there. So you either go through Greystone Manor pages or you can go just to Heather East or Heather Madison. Heather East Madison.
Okay. I'll make sure to put all the links in the description
Yeah.
below when this comes
Yeah.
out. And I thank you for coming on for a second time. For everyone out there, check out the Graystone Manor, book a night there, or maybe one of the public investigations that they have upcoming. And if you liked what you have heard today, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a episode. And I hope to see you guys again next week. And remember, keep digging into the darkness.